Yo, what up everybody? It's me, Fitness65, bringing you a new video. Now today's just going to be my quick thoughts on the Monday Night Wars, which was last night between the WWE against TNA. Overall, both shows really didn't bring their A game. Well, TNA brought their A game and it was the better show, but overall as a whole, both shows just weren't that good at all. So let's look at the recap of what happened on Raw. Raw opened up with Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker doing like a confrontation, and then they were talking about, Shawn Michaels was talking about he wasn't afraid and that he can end the Undertaker streak, and Undertaker was saying that Shawn Michaels better be afraid and he can look into his soul. Just the usual stuff from these two, which was good. And then they brought up a no DQ, which is going to be added into the Shawn Michaels Undertaker matchup at WrestleMania 26, which I don't have a problem with because it's gonna be good. It was gonna be a good match to begin with, but now that you add the no DQ, that just makes the match more exciting and you expect a lot more from that match. Then there was a Divas match with Eve Torres and Kelly Kelly and Gail Kim against Maurice, Alicia Fox, and Kaylee Burchill. This was not a very good Divas matchup, and it just showed that the WWE just doesn't care about the Divas division at all on Raw, as this was just horrible, hard to get into. It was funny that Maurice's team, Maurice, Alicia Fox, and Kaylee Burchill didn't get no entrance at all. I thought that was pretty funny, as Maurice is supposed to be the women's champion, but she didn't get no entrance at all. Just thought that was funny, but overall, this was not a good matchup. Terrible. Eve Torres and Kelly Kelly tried to make this match somewhat of a watchable matchup, but overall, this was just not a good matchup. Then you had Chris Angel do his segment with the Bella Twins and Hornswoggle, which was terrible. And overall, the Chris Angel segments that he had on Raw were just not that good at all. They just were terrible, and there were some lame PG jokes thrown in as well. Just awful. Then you had Showmiz and Morrison. You had Showmiz against Morrison and R-Truth. You had Miz cut a promo about the tag team division, and then he threw in the Allied Powers about them not being just a thrown together team with no charisma and no reaction at all. He was pretty much saying the same thing about Morrison and R-Truth. And then you had R-Truth and, well, he was saying that they were the best tag team in the WWE, and then you had Morrison and R-Truth come out, and they sort of just beat them down, and it was really not a match. It was just sort of R-Truth and Morrison letting them know that they're going to be the team that they need to deal with at WrestleMania 26. You had John Cena. After that, you had John Cena cut a promo on Batista, and then Vince McMahon saying he didn't know whether he can beat Batista or not, and he was ready for his match against McMahon, and he was waiting. He wanted Batista to get involved. Then you have William Regal and Chris Angel segment. Oh, I'm not even going to talk about that. That came out terrible. Then I believe it was Legacy against Randy Orton, in which Orton attacked Legacy from behind, and then you had Legacy sort of dominate Orton for a little bit, and then Orton make the babyface comeback, and it looked like he was going to put away Legacy, but Cody Rhodes grabbed his leg, and Orton got distracted, and then DiBiase hit Dream Street, and that was the end of that matchup. Overall, that match did what it needed to do, make Legacy a threat to Orton and not just jobbers and being Orton's bitch. That's pretty much what that match did. Then you had Triple H cut a promo on Sheamus, which was a pretty good promo, saying that he pretty much stepped in the ring with a lot of young guys, and some young guys beat him, which were two, John Cena and Batista, but other guys failed. I don't know what other young guys he's talking about, because other guys that he went in the ring with were pretty much older guys or pretty much the same age as him. But overall, it was a good promo, and it pretty much sets up the whole Triple H Sheamus matchup. We then go to the Money in the Bank qualifying matchup, which was between Evan Bourne and William Regal, which was a pretty good, which was a short matchup with Evan Bourne hitting one move on William Regal and then hitting the airborne on William Regal, and that'd be the end of that matchup. Overall, that matchup could have been longer, as it would have been a good matchup because you have William Regal and Evan Bourne, but still that matchup was just real short. We then move on to John Cena and Vince McMahon, which was a short which was a matchup that turned into a handicap matchup with you had Jack Swagger get involved, you had other guys like that, and then Mark Henry of all people. Then it turned into Batista, but Kofi Kingston sort of tried to help John Cena out and Mark Henry, but they ended up getting dominated, and then Batista just dominated John Cena, hit him with the Batista bomb, and that was it. And then Vince McMahon pinned him, and then they stepped on John Cena after the end of that. Overall, Raw was not that good. Raw, you had some good segments, you had some wrestling in there, but overall just was just like last week's Raw. It was a little bit better than last week's Raw, but to me it just felt like last week's Raw. We then move over to TNA Impact, which I want to give my quick thoughts on. TNA Impact overall was not that good of a show. I mean, it was a improvement over the January 4th show, but that's not saying much. You had the show open up with Hogan and Abyss against AJ Styles and Ric Flair, which turned into a little bit of a matchup, and then Abyss and Hogan were getting beat down by Styles and Flair, and then Sting came out and looked like he was going to help him out, and then it turned into sort of like the WCW thing from 1999 where Sting was standing by Hogan, and then Sting whacked Hogan and whacked Abyss, and that was pretty much the end of that segment. And then Sting walked out. Dixie Carter was wondering what was wrong with Sting, and Sting said he didn't know Dixie Carter nothing. That pretty much ended that. Then Hogan and Abyss, before that, they wanted to set up a match later on, which was going to be a no DQ. Thought that was pretty interesting. Then you had Kaz come out cutting a promo, Daniels come out cutting a promo, Doug Williams cutting a promo. That led to a really good X Division matchup that Eric Bischoff announced, with Kaz getting his X Division title shot. This was a very good matchup. 4 stars. Both guys hit some really nice moves. There was some nice sequences, and it was just your usual X Division matchup. And Doug Williams ended up getting the victory by hitting this rolling move into a German suplex. Very good matchup. Then you had Shannon Moore come out and beat Doug Williams, and Eric Bischoff announced Shannon Moore will be facing Doug Williams at the X Division pay-per-view, which makes totally no sense since they advertised Kaz would be taking on Doug Williams, since it was a #1 contenders match between Kaz and the Brian Kendrick. So that sort of just was pointless right there. Then you had the Knockouts Tag Team title matchup, which was okay, and the Beautiful People ended up getting the titles. Overall, it was an okay matchup. In my opinion, the Beautiful People should have got those belts a long time ago when they announced the Knockouts Tag Team titles. That's just me, but they waited a little too late. But the Beautiful People are your new Knockouts Tag Team champions. There was also a segment with Kevin Nash cutting a promo with Eric Young about wanting to get Six-Pac and Hall to come in for one night only. That led to a beatdown, and then Eric Young squashing Six-Pac. Well, Six-Pac slapped Eric Young in the face, and then that led to a one-on-one match where Eric Young won with the pile driver. Overall, not a good segment. Then you had the Jeff Jarrett against Beer Money, which was, I just want them to end that segment, the thing that they're doing with Jeff Jarrett, because it's just pointless and it's not leading to anything. And they also need to end that Mick Foley thing too, because they're just turning him into a pussy. Also, they had the RVD squash Sting, and then Sting beating RVD down, which was pointless because it made RVD's debut look like they made RVD look like a jobber, as they were sort of supposed to introduce RVD, that he's supposed to be the real deal and stuff like that, but they just made him look overall weak by Sting having to keep coming in and beating RVD down. He also beat Hogan down. There was also the Abyss and the match from the beginning. That was the last matchup, and it ended with Jeff Hardy coming out and beating down AJ Styles and Ric Flair, and then it looked like he was going to hit the Swanton, but TNA ended that with not showing Jeff Hardy hit the Swanton bomb. Overall, this was a good show, an improvement over, it was a okay show, improvement over the January 4th show, but it could have been a lot better. Less segments and more wrestling, and it would have been a lot better than what it could have been. Overall, that's my opinion on both shows. TNA beat Raw, and